So we're going to reassemble this first shaft for this gearbox. So this shaft here is going to go in this hole and this hole here. If you're changing your felts, you're going to make sure it's done already. Right there's a little felt pad that goes in. I'm not changing mine. And there's a felt strip right in here. Again, if you're changing that, make sure you do that before. And before you install anything, make sure you change that pad or that it's been reinserted if you removed it. Just getting some shavings out of there. Okay. Set that to the side right here. Set that aside. The shaft is going to go in essentially like this. I have a key right up here. You have a felt right here. Make sure your felt's in before you begin, so put it in now. We also have this hole for the taper pin. You're going to want to determine which side is the big side and which side is the small side. Our taper pin's here. Goes in like this. So we know if our felt and key is up, the taper pin just goes in from our side. Set that down here. Set this here. The gears are going to go in like this. It's essentially the order. You have your gear stack here. You have the gear with the taper pin hole here. The one with the the gear with the wider, smaller drive gear goes next. Then the other one with the two gears. And then finally this last one. These do not have any keys at all. I don't believe this one. No, this one neither. No keyways in here. This whole stack does. And don't forget there's that pin in the stack. Okay? So what we're going to do to make our life easier, going to take something to mark the gears. Wax, crown, whatever. I think this is for marking tile. Should work either way. We're going to mark where the keyway is on these gears so that we can line everything up. And do that on each one. Just like so. Okay. Pin's going to go there. We're just going to stack two on to start. The rest we'll put off to the side in the order we need them. Okay. With the keyway facing up, with your felts in the holes, you're going to slide your shaft through about halfway. First two gear stacks going to go on, keeping the red markings up, or any markings you've made up, so we know where our keyway is. Gently twist. You really shouldn't need any force for this part until the very end, if at all. Just slide on like that. Try and get out of your way. Boom. Done. Okay. Okay, our gear stack. They all go in order. Next largest gear. Make sure hole's in the right position. Won't go on if it's upside down. I'm just gonna slide it down. Line up the pin when you get there. And on. And the next one. And the next one. This one has the little dimple, but not a hole all the way through, so the pin could nest here. Again, we're just lining up all of our red marks, and that's going to save us a ton of effort momentarily. And we notice that our keyway, or our key there, lines up with that felt. So if you keep the felt up, you keep your key up. And you really just can't mess it up from there. All the reds are on the top. Next we're going to put on our gear with that taper pin. We're going to need a bit more room here. There we go. Okay. This one goes on. There's our big hole. We're going to face it towards us. Actually, let's mark that. So we know our taper pin is going to go through like that. And we know our taper pin also goes to the shaft like this when the keyway is up. So we're going to mark, if this had a keyway, it'd be up here. Red line oriented up. Slide this on. Okay. Next gear is going to be the one that's larger. It goes on. Start sliding this on. Get your stack lined up with the keyway there as it goes on. Slide the stack. Next gear, a slightly narrower one. Make sure you have just enough room. And it's on. Last but not least, the smallest of the gears. In it goes. Keep things balanced and just give us an easier time. We'll take our large punch, just feed it through. It's going to hold our small gear while we work this shaft through. So we're going to start pushing the shaft. Okay, I feel resistance. It's probably getting misaligned at a gear of some sort. I would say it's this one right here. So we're just going to spin this. Maybe apply a little bit, very light tapping until we really lock that up. Okay, that keyway's there somewhere. You just really got to fiddle with it this point. I think we're locked up right there. There we go. I think that's what we needed. Now, as you're doing this, the shaft is also lining up with the hole on either side. So take a peek down in this hole. There I can see, I'm not sure if you can, that smaller gear is not aligned properly, so that's our holding point. Stick our punch in there, just give it, we can see it's not lined up there either. Give it a little bit of realignment there. Push your pin. Not quite. I have the main shaft pushing this way with a decent amount of pressure. It's holding this gear. So we're just going to give it a really light tap with a brass punch on top. A couple more light taps. That's not going to work. Okay, let's back this pin off, take the pressure off. There we go, got more play there. Okay. Try another tactic. Looking down this hole, I can see that nothing's lined up. So that small gear needs to go that way a bit. Put this in. Just gentle. Give it a light tap on the side. Goes in ever so slightly, that's good. Now we're going to want to get our shaft lined up with the hole here. So we're just going to pull it up. It's probably where it wants to be. Light tapping, light tapping. Okay, we're probably having a gear alignment issue. Oh, just felt it drop in. There we go. Okay, another gear needs lined up. So it's the second, oh, that one's almost locked in. There we go. Need that second gear, I believe right about here. Just light tapping. There we go, it's locked up. Smallest gear now. We're getting there. Okay, we're hitting something. I believe we're all the way through. Okay, now we're going to take our main shaft and rotate it so all of our red lines are up. We got the red there. It's a little bit faded, but still there. This was the one with our taper pin that goes in. Red all across the top. We know we're going to line up correctly. Just got to get this small one locked in. And I can feel the pins a little flush. Actually, I might have overdriven it ever so slightly. Maybe a tenth of an inch or so. Okay. This main shaft, we're going to rotate this gear here so we line up. Get your red and red. Because we did that, we know this taper pin's going to go in just like this. Drive it in with a punch because I don't want to fuck it up too much. And it's going to really line up everything. There we go. That's the first part done. Wipe off that wax so it doesn't gum anything up. Or don't. I don't care. Next thing we're going to put in is going to be the shaft that goes right here. All right, something like that. We've got our felt that goes on the shaft right here. Put that back in. Make sure it's centered in the holes there. Got the keyway. Or the key, sorry, right there. And we're going to put it in from the left to the right. Sorry, before we do that, verify that you've reinstalled the felt right in there. See that? Right there. Make sure you reinstalled it if you took it out, and make sure the one on the other end has been reinstalled. These ones are. Just saves you having to take it apart multiple times. Okay, shaft is going in. We're going to pause there. These two gears go in like this. Pull this back. Drop these in. Take your shaft. Gentle. You just got to get the gears to mesh up nicely and just wiggle it in. It's going to take a bit of time. And don't forget there's that key that we have to line up as well as we do this. So what you could do if you want to, if you don't want to fiddle fuck with it, we could mark it out. There's that key. Mark the top. Okay, we know where that key is. We'll mark the shaft. Actually, if we need to, it lines up with the key over here, but there you go. A little bit of red right there and right there. Try that again. Shaft is going to go in. Drop your first gear in. Get the shaft lined up. It wants to fucking go. Now once you have your gear lined up, it's easier just to rotate the shaft to get the key lined up. There we go. Our key's on top right here. There's that one. And there we go. So I think we're just about lined up there. This one doesn't have any keying in it. It goes on like so. Meshed in. Grab by the shaft, force your shaft in until the key just touches. I think we're just about there. You can get most of the way until you start to get that resistance. So we don't drive out this bearing, brass bearing here, we're going to put the straight pin back in. Because of the way it's in, you probably have one side that's slightly peened out. For me, it's this one right here. This one's nice and easy to get in and out. We're going to drive it from the top down, sorry, not that hole, this one right here. There it is in there. Take your hammer, in it goes. Driving it in, just like so. Okay, now we can continue driving this shaft that way. A little bit of friction, it's stuck somewhere, and I give it a light tap because it's threaded here. I don't want to fuck that up. Just put some brass in between. A couple light taps. It's moving. So is the base, but that's okay. And we're going to keep driving it in until this part right here is flush with this part right here. Just like this, almost there. 16th, 32, and basically there. We're going to take our collar and our taper pin, figure out which way is the big side. That's the small side, so it should go all the way through here. And it does. So it's going to go through like that. We're going to check our shaft. Which way is the taper pin? There we go, goes like that. Nice and easy. You don't have to do that, but you don't have to check it like that, but it just makes everything so much easier. Put the collar on. My collar's a little tight here. Just give it a couple light tappity taps. And it wants to drive that back out. Of course it does. Oh yeah, so that's why. Mine has a couple tool marks there. Someone banging it at some point. Honestly, it probably was me. So we'll just drive it on that way. There we go. Now it just wants to go a lot more. Oh, let's drive that out. Okay, let's get our shaft back in. All the way, beautiful. Let's get this rotated in. And it's just a really fun balancing game of tapping everything and just getting it lined up nicely enough that you can get the taper pin going. If you have a really small punch, like here I got the scribe, I got 2 holes. We can just add just a little bit of force, use it almost like a bull pin. There we go. That's what we want. Taper pin in. There we go. Taper pin's just going to pull the alignment. There we go. Take a cloth, remove any of that wax just for good measure. So another section of this reassembled. All right, next thing we're going to want to do, we're going to want to put in our gear selector levers. There's one. There's 2. The shaft it goes on to. Felts for one side. The felt and the taper pin. Sorry, not taper pin. The straight pin that has a slight bend in it for the other side, and the felt. Okay, first thing we're going to do, look inside our gearbox and verify the felts are in. So on this hole here, there's one little felt patch that goes up here as part of the piping, I guess you could say, for the oil, for the lubrication. And then there's the patch right here. Also a hole up here. Should be some felt. I don't know what happened to mine. I'll have to put that in at a later date. And the felt strip that goes in there. Put the felt strip on. Just push it in with your finger. And make sure it's not too proud. Something like that. There we go. We're gonna rotate this over the correct way it's gonna be installed. Or way it's easier for us to do it. It's not the correct way. This is the left side of the machine. This will go on the right side. Shaft is going to go in from this side like so. Remembering that you want this area here, and it's going to go right here. We had the hole with that pin. Gentle, and it goes. Watch your felt doesn't drift too much on you. I think mine did. Yeah, just gotta move that back a bit. Doesn't do us any good. It slides out. Let's try that again. Putting this piece on like so, nice and gentle. Felt's moving again, that fucking cunt. There's our shaft. Okay. Next is the selector levers. This track here, that small little outside area, it's gonna go, they're gonna go to the outside. Yes, just verify. They do go to the outside. But again, this is the top part, right? So we want to flip it over like this. Now we can see that small part there needs to go to the outside, so it goes over here. This one's gonna go over here. Put them like that for now. We have the two gears that they go on to, or that go on with it. They go in there. We still have our two felts to put on. These will get put on last. First gear, first selector lever. Gear inside the selector lever. Notice the gear has a tapered end on one side only. We're going to put that one side facing the way we're driving the shaft to make it easier for us. So it goes on like so, and we're just going to rotate it until the keys, these gears have keys built into them. Right there, you see that? We're just going to rotate it until the keys line up with the keyways there. There's one. Push our shaft a little bit more. I'm just checking that felt didn't move too much. Second gear on. Get it lined up. Push it on here. You'll notice when you push them on, depending. Oh, I guess this one's different than the other one slightly. That's interesting. Oh, no, they're not. I'm just stupid. All right, pardon that. Okay, got this one back on. There we go. Anyways, you'll notice they have a slight taper, the keys right here as well. If you focus, you fucking cunt. There we go. Slight taper there. It'll help us get it on. These are very easy to align. They're very, very smooth. Getting it lined up. Hold through the selector lever. Just gotta work on our gear. Sliding it over. Okay, the shaft is against the gear. We're just gonna rotate the gear until we feel that sweet spot. There we go. Sweet spot found. Slide the shaft almost all the way over. Your two felts go in now. They go right here. They'll be lubricating this track in here for you. Okay. This right here. Second felt in. Drive your shaft. Again, you shouldn't need your hammer here. It'll just go in. So you did everything right. Your two felts are in there. See that? 1, 2. We see our felts. We can see on this side our felt is in. That means we can begin putting our pin back in. And if you remember, we drove the pin out through the bottom, right? Came out this way. So we're going to drive it the opposite way back in. So pin, we took our punch. There's a hole up here somewhere. Right there. There's our hole up top. So we're going to put it in right from here. The pin is going to curve away. See, it's got that slight curve to it. That curve right there, it's going to go up against here. We're going to get that lined up in the groove of the shaft. You look for which side is peened, and that's going to be the side that you hit. There's our peen side right there. You can see a little bit of wear on the shaft there, on this pin from rubbing up against the shaft. So go in like that. Get your curve lined up properly. Come on, camera. Take your hammer, gentle at first. Just the 2x4 block coming out. Okay, get that shaft nice and flush. Just be gentle till you know you've got it in the right spot. I clearly do not. There we go. Maybe not. Just gonna, let's see, we're not quite even there. Let's make sure shaft's even side to side for this light tap. Oh, there, felt it loose. That's the pressure. There we go. That pin should be lined up with the groove in the main shaft. And confirmed. Driving that pin all the way in until it's flush, just like so. That's your gear selector levers back in. One quick thing to do now. We're going to take these. Let me do it so you can see it. Take the selector lever, lock it into one of the hole, make sure it goes. This is a gear shaft with no real clutch mechanism, so you do have to make sure that the gears do line up. There we go. If you assembled it wrong, these aren't going to line up properly. So in your farthest right hole on this side, right here, this gear should be engaged to the farthest right gear. Hard for you to see, or maybe not. There we go. So in the farthest outside holes, farthest right here, farthest left there, well, when looking at it from the front, and they're engaged on the farthest outside gears. If you did it wrong, you would not be able to engage these outside gears. Check that before you go any further. One of the final steps, reinstalling that guide plate so you can only make correct gear changes. The two holes here, or the two pins, sorry, face down, okay? We're gonna slide this in just like so. Line it up, there we go. Actually, no, let's give it a quick wipe off. All right, sliding this in, lining it up. Got our two screws. Let's do this in the center of the frame. Two screws, slot screwdriver. Don't fuck up the slots. Our modern screwdrivers are not designed for slot screws the way they were used years ago. If you want a nice set, you can get a set of gunsmithing screwdrivers where the slots the blade's not quite tapered like that as much. All right, drive your screw in. Do it so you can see this a little better. Drive your screw in till you're finger tight. Put our second one in. Move the selector lever over out of our way. Because fuck that. Okay. Watch me move it too far past and fucking lock it on the pin like an idiot. There we go. That's a little bit better. Okay. Get your screwdriver, hole, thread it, drive it in finger tight. Make sure everything's in there nice. And get these screws nice and tight now. Good. There's our gearbox reassembled, minus the lead screw. We'll do that next. So give this a quick wipe off. Let's get these selector levers locked in somewhere. There we go. Fucking oil everywhere. That's okay. It's gonna happen doing this kind of stuff. Get your gearbox flipped over. Verify, again, that your felt is in that hole for your lead screw. Let's see if we can make this a little more even. Okay. Selector levers are even. It's going to be a little bit easier. Easier on your sanity too. Fuck. Alright. Get this lined up like so. Prop something under it if you wish. Just like that. Here's our lead screw we set aside from the disassembly. 2 jam nuts on top. They're just finger tight. I'll take those off. These are 7/8 nuts. I don't have my 7/8 wrench here. I have very limited tools in this shop. Shouldn't even call it a shop. It's basically a crawl space. All right, there we go. Gear off as well. I guess it's important to mention, make sure you don't lose that key. It will come out as you do this. Bring that through the shaft. Line it up nice and gentle. Take your gear. Look for where your keyway lines up. Mine's right there. Put it like that. Slides on. You can only get this on one way. Well, you get on both ways. It's only going to work one of the ways. This gear will not mesh with this second gear here. It has to be on this one. It has to be on this one. It has to be on this one. I'll say it again. Put it on this fucking gear. Little gentle twist while we apply pressure. And it will go on. Can be a little bit of a pain in the ass. There we go. Boom, done. Okay, your 2 nuts. Thread your first one on. Grab your wrench that is way too big for this job because you don't have your proper wrenches handy. Get it on there. You don't want to go too tight. If I can cut, there we go. If you go too tight, all you're going to do is jam this gear against the casting and against that. Where our goal is not to pinch the casting at all. This is where 2 wrenches comes in real handy, because we can hold on, focus, you fuck. We can hold that nut when we drive the jam nut onto it. And what you really want to do, if you don't have this nut, if you have this nut tied up against here, you'll be able to torque this one onto it, but you'll pinch the casting. We don't want to do that. We want just enough play in there. So you need to hold that steady somehow. And if you have the proper wrenches, it's going to be way fucking better than whatever the fuck I have to figure out. Let's adjust it to size. There we go. Drive this down. Fucking cunt. Well, let's see if we can do this with 2 wrenches wider than the fucking nut. I think we have that. I'll have to readjust that with the proper tools. But that's the gist of it. 2 7/8 wrenches is what you need for that. This is on. Turns pretty readily. That's it. Reassembly of the South Bend Model 9A lathe gearbox and lead screw. We're going to set that aside, and then we're going to mount it onto the lathe bed next.